Still in his EVA suit, Jeremy watched as the fabricator finished the last warhead. It was all the fissile material they could spare. He pondered for a moment, then pushed the button on his EVA that would call his tote. He absolutely loved this tote. It had a pretty big storage area, enough for his tools and materials to keep him busy for hours. Its AI was pretty good too, he noted. If it encountered a hatch it couldn't normally fit through, or a corner that was a bit tight, it would scan it and turn itself to make it through. It even had an arm on it that would hand him things as he asked for them, being a silent but valuable helper. It was beat up, dented, and scratched. Unfortunately, he was running out of time and wouldn't be able to get another one put together by the time his self-imposed deadline ran out. Carefully, he set the warhead inside and retrieved his tools. Using his tablet, he programmed its final mission, patted the top of it, and said, "Best helper I've ever had. Been nice knowing you, pal." His thoughts immediately focused on Eri, and he fought back the tears. A soft chirp from his tablet told him that the task had been uploaded. Without hesitation, the tote then lifted off the ground and left for the airlock. His tablet chirped again, and Jeremy checked his messages. Terran Police Command had just replied to his query, confirming that they didn't have any ships near him and to ignore the other ship. He sent a short message.
Ignoring them isn't going to accomplish anything except getting blown up. Going to try to end this peacefully probably won't work.
He included his coordinates and trajectory, sent the message, and tucked the tablet into its pouch on his EVA.
"Hey, guys."
He calmed the rest of the crew.
"We all set?"
They all reported they had done what he'd told them.
"All right, I'm about to call them. Remember, just keep working unless something happens. If things start to go south, I want all of you to get to the escape capsule and go. I'll call if you can come back."
Resi spoke.
What about us?
"I don't think you guys had anything to do with all this, but I just can't have you walking around. I'm going to try and dupe these guys into thinking you're still running around, so stay in your quarters and hide. If I make the call to evacuate, get the hell out. No reason not to."
Jeremy replied. There were no other questions.
"All right, I'm calling them."
Jeremy took a deep breath, then made the call.
"Hey, Jones, you there?"
"We're here, Subtle. Did you find the other two?"
Jones asked.
"No, they ditched their locators in their quarters. There's just not enough of us to search the whole ship effectively. Can you meet me at the ventral airlock?"
Jeremy asked, surprised his voice wasn't shaking. The shock was wearing off, unfortunately, and to call what he was feeling nervous was about as big of an understatement he could think of.
"What's wrong with the dorsal?"
Jones asked.
"The docking tube on that one has a finicky seal. Haven't had a chance to fix it yet,"
he replied.
"Roger, we'll meet you at the ventral airlock. What's the other crew doing?"
"They're working. Well, except the cook. They've locked themselves in the bridge until this is over,"
he replied.
"You okay?"
Jones asked.
"Shit. Yeah, just a little nervous with the other two running around. They already killed one of us."
"Just get us in there, Jeremy. You're doing great."
Jeremy swore he heard someone laughing in the background.
"On my way to the airlock. Be there in 2 minutes,"
he said. They even looked the part, Jeremy noted. The 10 of them were all in police uniform and combat gear, with matching weapons and even name tags. He worried that maybe there was some kind of miscommunication with the Terran Police Command, but they had been positively clear that they had no ships near him.
"Jones?"
he called.
"Jones is on the ship."
One of them stated Lee according to his name tag.
"You Subtle?
"Yeah, let me show you what's going on."
Where's this cargo you were talking about? With the drugs and the red stuff?"
he asked insistently.
Yeah, this way. We opened all of the containers once we realized what's going on,"
he said.
"Would you,
he stammered.
Would a couple of you mind going first? I'm not a cop or anything."
A few of them took point, which made him a little more comfortable about not getting shot in the back.
"Left up here,"
he said.
"There's an access code to the door. It's huh?"
"What is it?"
Lee demanded. Jeremy let out a nervous laugh.
"It's a 88.
Lee shook his head.
"Not big on security, I take it?"
"Not really, I guess."
The 4 that were up front acted like police. Their weapons were raised the whole time, and they took the corner like Jeremy imagined soldiers would. peeking out for a brief moment before fully committing to the hallway. Lee shook his head again and entered the code. The door opened and they piled in.
Any idea what this stuff is?
Jeremy asked. Lee picked up one of the pill bottles and uncapped it. He peered in, shining a flashlight.
Looks like tremors.
He said, tossing a bottle to one of the others, who nodded.
Tremors?
It's a kind of ammo. Weapons inside were probably repurposed to shoot it. Caustic and toxic as hell. Would knock you out the second you breathed it in and would kill you within a minute. If you were wearing a mask, it'd eat through it pretty quick. Hits your skin it.
Got it.
Jeremy interrupted.
Sounds like some nasty shit.
Very. And also very illegal pretty much everywhere. You find out where they got it from?
Lee asked.
No, but the captain might know. She's in the uppermost deck, called the canopy.
Yeah, we'll be taking her with us.
Lee stated. He pressed a button on his wrist.
Hey, Jones.
Go ahead.
Jones replied. Jeremy was actually glad he had the brain aug right then.
Found the stash. Tremor rounds and guns to shoot them. 4 containers worth.
Holy shit, that's a good haul. Real good.
Lee turned and quietly asked.
What do you think it's worth?
Fuck, man, like 20 mil? 30. Add the ship and whatever else they got. And we're looking at like 40 or 50.
Might have the supplier too,
He said.
Captain might know, Jeremy mentioned.
Shame, really. Kid just made us fucking rich.
Jones sighed.
All right, you know the drill.
Roger.
Lee said, drawing his sidearm, turning and leveling at Jeremy's face.
Sorry, kid. Don't want to hurt you. So we're going to go up to the bridge and get everyone down here. All goes well. We'll drop you all in a pod, shoot you at racks, let those guys pick you up.
I'm sorry, too.
Jeremy said, raising his hand, pressing his thumb to his little finger. Lee shrugged.
That's, cute?
If you want to call a dead man switch cute, sure.
Jeremy said. All of them took several steps back. There was a lot of yelling, but Jeremy didn't mind.
Shut the fuck up, all of you!
Lee shouted.
Listen, Subtle. Don't know what you're packing in that EVA suit of yours, but you won't get all of us.
Just me in this suit,
Jeremy replied. A smile crept onto his face.
Switch goes to warheads in those containers.
Bullshit.
Lee yelled. Jeremy pointed to one of the crates.
You can open that one. I didn't rig it with any anti-tamper devices. Figured you might not believe me.
Lee opened the lid and found an armed 10-megaton warhead staring back at him. With a hand that shook like he came down with a sudden case of Parkinson's disease, he activated his comm.
Cap, we got a problem. Kid rigged a bunch of warheads to a dead man's switch.
Fuck. All right, I'll jam it. Give me a minute.
Jones replied.
Mind if I talk to him?
Jeremy asked politely. Lee looked at Jeremy like he was crazy. Hell, he probably was.
Fuck if I care who you call.
Hey, Jones.
Jeremy called.
Kid, don't know what you're playing at, but...
Need you to not jam this. It's not that kind of dead man switch,
he said calmly.
Why would I want to do that?
He asked.
Because the switch armed the warheads when I pressed it, but it's also transmitting a signal to keep them from detonating. You'd be jamming the don't blow up signal.
Fuck, stop.
He yelled at someone. An eternity passed.
All right, Subtle, what's your play here?
Right now,
he said, pushing another button on his comm. His voice boomed throughout the ship.
You're going to let the rest of my crew get onto their escape capsule and leave.
Fine,
he said.
Let the other crew go.
Jones said over Lee's comm.
Understood.
Lee replied.
Then what?
Jones asked Jeremy. He pressed the button again, taking him off the ship-wide PA.
Then we're going to wait for them to call me and tell me they're a safe distance away. In the meantime, we're all going to go to the kitchen, and I'm having a drink.
Once in the kitchen, Jeremy pointed to the liquor cabinet.
Lee, would you mind? Don't really want to risk blowing us up for some bourbon.
Lee shook his head and half threw, half dropped his rifle onto the counter and grabbed a glass.
Anyone else?
Jeremy asked.
Help yourselves.
Jeremy downed half the glass. Lee and one of the others joined him. After several minutes of uncomfortable silence, Jeremy asked,
So, aside from today, how's the pirate business?
Why?
Lee scoffed.
You looking for a job?
Now that he'd mentioned it, Jeremy tried to imagine working on a pirate ship.
Dunno, how's the pay?
You're fucking kidding me, right?
Lee asked, slamming the rest of his drink. He slid the glass to one of his subordinates, who went to refill it.
Never considered it, really. Think it'd better than nearly getting killed by your own captain so she can shove some implants in you?
There were a few nervous chuckles. Lee was about to say something when Jeremy's tablet chirped. It was a message from home, not the message he was hoping for, but certainly not unwanted since it might be the last one he got to see.
Hold that thought,
he said. He was about to excuse himself, but decided what the hell. He hit play. It was his younger brother, Seth. He was 17, so when Jeremy saw the tears streaming down his face, he knew it was pretty serious.
Jeremy,
his brother started, wiping his face.
I don't know how to tell you, so I'm just going to tell you. They're gone, bro.
Jeremy's heart felt like it had stopped for a minute. Seth continued.
Cops came by the hospital, asking about you again. Pa got pissed, and they got into it good this time. Pa lost it, and well, they shot him.
Jeremy's mouth hung open as he watched his brother bawl for another minute.
Wasn't even armed,
he screamed. After calming himself a little, he continued.
But you know they don't really care about all that. Best case, they get a paid suspension. Anyway, so we're gonna stay with Uncle Rob till I'm 18, then me and Sis are gonna get a place. This shit's all your fault, bro. Don't fucking call us. Don't come and try to make it right, 'cause you can't. Don't know what shit you're into, but you killed them.
The message ended there. Across from him, Lee's eyes had grown wide. Jeremy's shut tight, fighting back tears. There was no time to grieve right now. He had to think about his options. He'd planned on just two, and they all began to diverge right at the juncture he currently found himself, just without the message he'd just gotten. The plan was to let his crew get safe, tell the pirates to fuck off. At that point, they'd likely just shoot the ship from a safe distance. At which point, Jeremy would detonate the warhead inside the tote that had certainly attached itself to their ship by now. If they didn't, his tote was to detach after 3 days and find a nice, safe place to blow up. Regardless, he had planned to let the actual police do their thing. Now they could go fuck themselves. Jeremy opened his eyes to a full glass being plopped in front of him. He grimaced as he downed the whole thing.
You trust your captain, Lee?
Jeremy asked. Lee nodded.
Why?
He wouldn't say cut your O2 so he could shove some implants in you, would he?
Fuck no. Jones has always done all right by us.
Jeremy looked around at several nods.
You guys wouldn't be in need of an engineer, would you?
Lee had spent the last few minutes talking to Jones. From what Jeremy could hear, the conversation was going in his favor. Then came the topic of Sella and her cargo.
Sell it back to her house,
Jones said.
She's disowned,
Jeremy interrupted. Lee looked at him funny.
You heard all that?
Yeah. If it's even true, I just don't know with her. If she's disowned and she were on fire, her family wouldn't piss on her to put her out,
he said. There was a long pause.
So we can blow it up or just leave it?
The fuck if I'm going to let her leave with it,
Jeremy said.
Kid,
Lee said.
if you're serious about signing on, you need to realize something. You don't give orders. You get a say, but you don't tell anyone, much less the cap, what to do.
Jeremy shook his head.
Sorry, after what she's done, I just can't see letting her win.
There was another long pause, then his comm chirped.
Jeremy, we're away. Let us know when you can.
Keir said, ending the call promptly.
You hear that?
Lee asked.
No, sorry, crew's safe distance now,
Jeremy said.
Cap's going to talk to you on the ship. Our ship. You got to disarm that switch, though.
Lee said. There was a moment of hesitation. Jeremy had developed some trust issues recently, but he disabled it and made a show of separating his thumb from his little finger. He pulled the glove off and removed the magnetic switch, then taking out the battery to prevent any accidents.
I'll get the one off your ship, too,
he said, pulling up his tablet.
What?
Lee yelled.
Yeah, had one in a tote. Attached itself right when you boarded,
he said, entering the commands into his tablet. The tote detached and returned to the behemoth. Done. Lee shook his head.
Let's go.
They were in the process of discussing Sayla's fate. Jones was somewhat on the fence. The cargo would be difficult to sell without drawing a ton of unwanted attention from some very dangerous people. On the other hand, it was a lot of money. They both made their case. Jeremy supported Jones's former argument that it was too risky and added that Sayla needed to pay. Lee thought it was worth the risk. Jeremy found the pirates to be very civil about it.
All right, vote time,
Jones said.
All in favor of blowing it up?
5 out of the 12 raised their hands, Jeremy included. Shit, Jeremy thought. Selling it? Only 5 raised their hand. Jones looked at Jeremy. He hadn't voted yet, and Jeremy was lost as to how things worked. Just then his tablet chirped at him.
Oh, fuck me sideways.
What?
Sayla somehow got loose. She's on the bridge. If she engages the engines, the warheads blow.
Christoph, get us the fuck out of here.
Jones screamed. They accelerated hard. There wouldn't be a shockwave since there wasn't any air for the warheads to push, but they needed to get far enough away that shrapnel wouldn't shred them. Jeremy's tablet chirped again, and Jeremy strained to get it out of his pocket since they were strapped in and burning hard. Again, he found himself glad to have the implants.
Captain Jones, warheads just went off,
he yelled.
Christoph, how are we?
5 minutes to impact now, but if we keep burning, it'll take 15 to reach us. Should be dispersed enough not to tear us up too bad.
Jones shouted loud enough for Jeremy to hear.
Guess that settles that.
Jeremy felt an unexpected smile creep onto his face as he thought of Sayla. He had never heard truer words.